So that brings us next on to Southampton, really. Yeah, confirmed as being relegated from the Premier League. It's been about 8 or 9 teams that have been up for relegation for a few months now, it feels like. This is the first one that's been confirmed. The first team to fall adrift as well. They've kind of gone off the boil, haven't they, completely in recent weeks. But nonetheless, still really sad to see Southampton to go down after 11 years in the Premier League, especially because their story of getting there in the first place was so heroic almost, going down to League One and coming all the way back up again with the likes of Ricky Lambert. It feels like a lifetime ago, but they were popular because of how they got back into the Premier League. And they almost became the Brentford and the Brighton of their day, where they established themselves as a really sustainable team, selling on star names like Sadio Mane as well. So they've had some very good players over the years. Their investment this year has been not quite as prolific as it usually is in a good way. They've signed a lot of players, but very, very young players. Has that been their undoing, do you think? Too many players, too inexperienced, too soon?
It seemed like they were preparing for the Championship at the start of the season, if we're totally honest. They didn't really know what their approach was. Now, don't get me wrong, some of the young players they've signed do look really quality and will go on to have fantastic careers at higher levels than Southampton, if we're honest.
Yeah.
Like Lavia, for example, he looks brilliant, and it's a surprise to see him potentially having a relegation on his CV already. But they put so much pressure on a very young side, being led by experience of players who aren't really cut out for this level, with a couple of exceptions maybe. And then they made weird coaching decisions where Hasenhüttl, things weren't going well under him, and it's been an odd spell for him at Southampton. You can understand why they thought they maybe needed to move on. Do I think Southampton would be in a better position now if they'd stuck with him? Probably. Nathan Jones was a terrible appointment. They didn't solve that problem quickly either. No. They didn't identify someone that would keep them in. They didn't go for a Dyche or a Sam Allardyce, as much as I'm loath to say it. It just seemed to be like, okay, we've given up. We've kind of resigned to the fact that we're going to go down now, and we'll look to rebuild in the summer. But what does a rebuild for this Southampton squad look like? Because there are a lot of players that will get picked off. There's a lot of those players will not be in the Championship next season, let's be honest.
No, they've got some fantastic players, haven't they? Yeah, I mean, Bella Kotchap's a really highly rated defender as well, isn't he? Yeah, Aribo probably. Kaleta Carr as well. These are all quite recent signings as well. All been very impressive in spells, but between them, how many Premier League appearances have they got? Like 0? I don't think any of them have played in the Premier League or had any appearances or experience. And when you're fighting relegation, you need to win a dogfight, and they're just not built for that. I do think the changes of coach have been really telling, because I think they've used 32 players in the Premier League this season, which is behind only Nottingham Forest, who have used 33. So they've used a lot of players, had a lot of uncertainty, very unsettled starting 11, and a lot of inexperience as well. So it's kind of a recipe for relegation, really, I think.
You've been relying on James Ward-Prowse scoring free kicks all season, and that's not a game plan or a tactic. I don't know how Southampton play football still. After all season, I don't really know how you identify Southampton's style. And all right, that's probably difficult when you've had 3 coaches, but it is a shame. You're right. When you consider where Southampton were, they were knocking on the door of Europe for a while, and that squad was brilliant. Graziano Pelle was there. They had Tadic, obviously doing great things with Ajax since then. Mane, like you mentioned, Lallana, Lambert, Rodriguez, Van Dijk and Klein. Remember that? Shaw, even. It was a great squad, and it seemed like every time they had to recycle, it's a bit different to Brighton. When Brighton have sold someone big, they've managed to reinvest that money really well. And Southampton seemed like they were trying to do that. And then this summer, they just did too much. Yeah. They just didn't know where to go with it. And I don't know. At the start of the season, did I think Southampton would go down? I probably thought they'd have a bad season, but there'd be 3 teams worse than them. And they've comfortably been the worst team in the league all season. Hence why they're the first to go, really. It's interesting. I just wonder, of that squad now, who's in the Premier League next year? Are we in agreement that Walker-Peters will stay somewhere, surely? He's good. He's a good player. Ward-Prowse will get a move.
Do you think? I think he might do like a Mark Noble and stick around and be the heartbeat of Southampton to get them back. No?
The thing is, he's an England international, so that already adds money to his price tag and his reputation. he's a set-piece specialist that a lot of teams will lack. There's plenty of teams in the Premier League that are missing a midfielder. I actually think Ward-Prowse is really overrated. I think he's really good from a set-piece, but Villa have been linked with him a few times over the last couple of years, and I'd stay well away from him. I don't think he's anywhere near good enough for our midfield. But I've got this sneaking feeling that either Spurs or maybe even Liverpool will come in for him.
I agree.
Look at Liverpool. They signed Andy Robertson when he got relegated. Mm-hmm. They signed Wijnaldum when he got relegated and turned them into decent players. I wouldn't be surprised if they were looking in that market. He'll stay somewhere, and Lavia will probably get a move. The rest of them, I don't know.
No, there's a few kind of players that need a season in the Championship really to grow and mature. A lot of them are still kind of 20 to 25. It's very raw. So they'll be battle hardened come the end of it. If they can bounce back straight away and get promoted in one season, I think they could establish themselves again as a Premier League team. But for now,
absolutely,
farewell Southampton. It's been a long stretch, 11 years, but new blood to enter.
To be fair to them, look what this young Sunderland side was able to do in the Championship this season. So maybe it is the right league for them to be in for now. And actually, they'll get a parachute payment. They'll be able to reinvest some of that. They'll sell on some of their higher earners. It might not be the worst thing for a club like Southampton. There's some clubs that you look at and think if they go down, that'll be the end of them and it'll be a real problem and a real struggle for them to get back up. I don't know if I think that about Southampton. I actually think that, they probably are quite well equipped to reinvest and go again next season. But they need to make some correct decisions quickly. They need to decide who's going to be their manager next season, for example. Who's an obvious candidate to take over at Southampton in the Championship? I'm not sure there is one.